Are you someone who experiences a lot of guilt? If so, you're in the right place. Today we're going to explore a variety of reasons you may be experiencing guilt. Hi, I'm Sarah Engler. I'm an LDS therapist, coach, and author with more than 25 years of experience helping women improve their emotional and mental health. Please keep in mind that the information shared in this video is for educational and personal development purposes only. If you are dealing with significant mental health issues, please reach out to a local mental health therapist for support. All right, so let's talk about guilt. It's not comfortable to feel. It's not fun to experience. It's not supposed to be. It's meant to move us to action. So guilt can be a healthy and helpful emotion. It can let us know when we've made a mistake and we've gotten off course, need to make a correction. There are other reasons that you may be experiencing guilt, and we're going to explore those. So this is just a brief illustration that outlines some of the reasons. I'm certain I haven't identified all of the reasons, but these are some of the reasons you may be experiencing guilt when you haven't made a mistake and there's nothing that needs to be corrected. So we're going to talk about each one of these specifically. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that there is an understanding about the difference between guilt and shame. So as I said, guilt is a healthy and helpful emotion when we have made a mistake. It is about something that we've done wrong and we need to course correct. Shame is about not that we feel bad about what we've done, but about who we are. So shame is at our core, at our nature, we are a bad person or we are bad. Shame is not healthy or helpful, although all of us experience it. And so it becomes really important to be able to recognize the difference between shame and guilt. So a quick way is when you find yourself feeling guilty is just to check in. Am I feeling bad about something I've done wrong, or am I feeling bad about who I am? And that helps you identify guilt versus shame. So shame is so unhealthy because it creates isolation. Shame, when we experience shame, it is this full body, visceral reaction. And I know certainly for me, I'm looking for the quickest place that I can hide. There's very much a sense of I can't allow anyone to see me. I can't allow anyone to know. And so I'm isolating myself. And that's what allows shame to grow and to become more destructive, is when we isolate and we are hiding. So as I talked about with guilt, when we recognize we've made a mistake, we need to course correct or apologize. With shame, the answer is, and you're not going to like it, I don't like it, but I know it's true. The answer is we need to wrap words around our shame. I love that descriptor from Brené Brown. We need to bring the shame into the light, which I know is the last thing you want to do. But when we share our shame with an empathetic listener, it's no longer hidden, it's no longer in the dark. And that is how we move through shame in a healthy way. So when you notice yourself feeling guilt, just do a quick check-in. Am I feeling bad about something I've done? Or am I feeling bad about who I am? And that will tell you the difference between you're experiencing guilt or you're experiencing shame. Another reason or another thing to consider when you notice yourself experiencing guilt is it a secondary emotion? So secondary emotions cover up or help us to experience an emotion that is more comfortable than something that is more tender or vulnerable. So for instance, guilt could be covering up a feeling of powerlessness or helplessness. It could be covering up anger, or it could be covering up embarrassment or something else. As strange as it may sound, if you're someone who experiences a lot of guilt, guilt can almost become comfortable. it is familiar to you. And even though guilt isn't fun to experience, there's a comfort in, okay, I know this, versus getting connected with a feeling of powerlessness or a feeling of anger or embarrassment. So when you notice yourself feeling guilty and you haven't made a mistake, consider, is there an emotion more tender, more vulnerable that I'm not allowing myself to connect with? Guilt can also give us a sense of control. If I feel guilty, right, the implication is I've done something wrong, which means I have the ability to do something about it. If instead I recognize this is really about feeling powerless, I can't do anything about this particular situation, that is a completely different experience to process through. But if I'm guilty of something, then I should or could do something about it. And so in a strange way, there can be a sense of control or a sense of empowerment if we're finding ourselves feeling guilty. And for a variety of reasons, which we're not going to go into today, women will feel more comfortable taking on guilt versus something like anger. Guilt is directed inward. Anger is directed, typically expressed outward. And so it's not uncommon for women to be more comfortable with, I'm going to, turn this inward, feel badly about something that I've done, be guilty, versus expressing anger or upset externally. All right, perfectionism. This one's a little bit tricky. Because as we talked about at the beginning, to experience guilt is to let us know we've made a mistake or done something wrong. When you're in a perfectionistic mindset, meaning you are trying to live perfectly in every way, and we do that to try and avoid discomfort, vulnerability, and pain. But when you're living in that way, you're going to make mistakes. It's impossible. You aren't perfect. I'm sorry if that's new information. You're not going to be perfect. And so when you set yourself up with this perfectionistic mindset, you have set yourself up to fail. You're going to do things imperfectly and therefore feel guilty. However, that guilt doesn't necessarily mean you've done anything wrong. It means you have unrealistic expectations. And so this one's a little bit trickier because if I'm in that mindset, I can go through all of the reasons, all of the things that I've done wrong. It's not actually that I've made a mistake or done something wrong. It's that I haven't lived perfectly. And so therefore I need to feel guilty. So a quick example of this would be going to the gym, working out. And you've set some goals, maybe unrealistic, that you need to be at that gym 6 days a week and you need to be there for 60 minutes each time. And then there comes a day where you're just not feeling good. And it might be physically not feeling good or emotionally, whatever. And you make the decision not to go to the gym. If you're in a perfectionistic mindset, what's your reaction to that? Often it's going to be beating yourself up and feeling guilty for not going to the gym. So did you actually do anything wrong? No. In fact, if you're not feeling well, you were taking care of yourself by taking a break. But in that perfectionistic mindset, it's really easy to fall into, I'm feeling guilty. I did something bad. So you really want to stay aware of the perfectionistic mindset. And when you notice it, shift it by practicing self-compassion, which is to be kind and understanding towards yourself. So with our gym example, it would be, it makes sense that I would take a break, or it's good for me to take a break when I'm not feeling well. All right, another reason you could be experiencing guilt is you are taking ownership for other people's experiences. So do you notice how often or how hard you work to make sure that those around you aren't uncomfortable or upset in any way? And when someone is upset or uncomfortable, how do you interpret that? So We can find ourselves, you may find yourself feeling guilty if you take ownership, meaning you feel like you caused the discomfort or upset that the person is experiencing, or it's your responsibility to fix it and they're still upset, and so you have failed in fixing it. So there's a couple of things. Obviously, you need to take accountability. If you were rude, if you have a part in what went on, okay, own that. But most often when I'm talking to women, that's not what this is about. They care, they love the people around them. They don't want to see them hurting and upset. And so they somehow want to make it better. And so an example would be, I'm going to set a boundary with my children. Now, most of the time, your children are not going to be super happy about that. And so we can take on feeling guilty because I've set this boundary and now they're upset. I've made them feel upset. We all experience uncomfortable emotions. We're supposed to. It's part of our journey, part of our learning process. So when you're noticing guilt, pay attention. Am I taking on ownership of other people's experiences or expecting myself to in some way make it better and fix it for them, which actually does them a disservice and not helping support them in comforting, working through it themselves. So when you notice that you're taking on that ownership for other people, shift your focus. So you can send them love and comfort, and that could be verbally, that could just be you're thinking of love and sending that to them, and then shift your focus back to you. What are you responsible for? What do you need to be focused on? Okay, so these are some of the reasons that you may be experiencing guilt when you haven't made a mistake. What I would suggest to you is that anytime you notice yourself feeling guilty, you start with the question, have I done something wrong? Have I made a mistake? And if the answer is no, then get curious. You can explore these options. There certainly could be others, but get curious about why is that guilt experience showing up for you? Thanks for hanging out. And as always, remember, you are so much more than good enough.